You already pay 4 kinds of tax. Only one of them has a name. The other 3 never show up on a W-2. There's no April deadline, no form, no auditor. Nobody calls it a tax at all. And yet, spread across a working lifetime, these 3 invisible costs can take more from you than the IRS ever will. By the end of this video, you'll be able to name all 4, spot them in your own life, and start closing the gap they've been opening for years without your permission. 2 of them will feel personal, almost like a mirror. 2 of them are bigger than you, built into the system itself, and collected whether you notice or not. Once you see all 4, you can't unsee them. And that's exactly the point, because the first way any tax loses its power is by being noticed. Here's the strange part about money and awareness. Most people are extremely careful with the parts of their finances that are visible. They check their bank balance. They compare prices at 2 different grocery stores. They notice when gas goes up 10 cents a gallon and mention it at dinner. But the money that disappears the loudest is almost never the money that costs the most. The real damage happens in the background. It builds across years, hidden inside decisions that feel completely normal, even responsible, in the moment they're made. That's what makes a hidden cost more dangerous than an obvious one. You can budget around a bill. You can't budget around something you don't know exists. Picture 2 people starting the exact same job, on the exact same day, at the exact same salary. Same city, same rent, same starting point. 10 years pass. One of them has built a growing net worth. The other is earning more money than ever and somehow has less to show for it. Neither of them gambled. Neither had some financial disaster wipe them out. Neither made one single bad decision anyone could point to and call a mistake. On paper, both of them did everything a responsible adult is supposed to do: work hard, get promoted, pay the bills on time, avoid obvious debt traps. So what actually separated them, if not effort, income, or luck? Part of the answer has a name in psychology: hedonic adaptation. It's the brain's habit of treating any new level of comfort as the new baseline, almost instantly. A raise stops feeling like a raise within a few months. The larger apartment, the newer car, the extra streaming subscriptions, the slightly nicer version of everything, they all become just how life is now, without a single conscious decision to accept them. Nobody experiences one dramatic moment where spending catches up to income. It happens one small, reasonable-looking decision at a time, so gradually it never triggers alarm. That's the first invisible tax: lifestyle inflation. Nobody is stealing from you. There's no villain. You are simply spending your own raises before you ever get the chance to actually benefit from them, and the version of you 5 years from now inherits the bill. The second invisible tax is bigger, and far less personal. It doesn't care how disciplined you are, how carefully you budget, or how responsible your decisions look. It happens to your money whether you spend a single dollar of it or not. It's called inflation, and most people only know half of it. They think of it as prices going up. That's the effect. The actual cause is that the dollar itself is worth less than it used to be. Prices just make that decline visible. Here's the receipt. $100 in the year 2000 could buy a certain basket of everyday goods. Buying that same basket today takes roughly $187. Flip that around: $100 in cash, held since 2000 and never spent, has lost close to half its real buying power. Nobody spent it. Nobody stole it. It just sat there while the ground shifted underneath it. Go back further and the number gets harder to look at. $100 in 1975 is worth about $16 today. Same mechanism, for times the distance, 50 years of a currency losing value while the people holding it did absolutely nothing wrong. So where does inflation actually come from? This is the part most people skip, because it sounds technical. It isn't. Follow the money, and the trail leads somewhere surprisingly specific. Money gets created. Not as a metaphor, literally, through the banking system and the central bank's own policy tools. When the total supply of money grows faster than the economy's actual output of goods and services, every existing dollar represents a slightly smaller slice of the same pie. More slices, same pie, smaller pieces. Here's the moment that trail leads to. Between 2020 and 2021, the broad measure of money in the U.S. economy, what economists call M2, grew by roughly 27% in a single year. Nothing like it had ever been recorded. Bigger than the emergency response to the 2008 financial crisis. Bigger than the spending surge of World War II. The largest one-year expansion of the money supply in American history. A little over a year later, inflation hit its highest level in more than 4 decades. Economists still argue about how much of that spike came from the money supply versus supply chains and energy prices. But the sequence is hard to ignore: a historic flood of newly created money, followed by the sharpest inflation most people alive today had ever felt. This is the machinery behind the second invisible tax, and it runs without a vote, without an announcement, and without anyone's signature. This next one isn't hiding in the economy anymore. It's hiding somewhere much closer, inside a document that's probably sitting in your inbox right now, one you've almost certainly never fully opened. That document is your account statement. And the third invisible tax lives inside a single line most people scroll straight past without a second thought: the expense ratio. Nearly every retirement account and mutual fund charges a fee, usually expressed as a small, almost forgettable-looking number, something like 0.6% a year. It sounds too small to matter. That feeling is exactly why it survives unchallenged in so many portfolios. Run the actual math instead of trusting the feeling. Invest $10,000 for 30 years, at an 8% return before fees. In a low-cost fund charging a fraction of a percent, that money compounds almost untouched. In a higher-fee fund, still a completely normal, widely sold option, the gap by year 30 can exceed $22,000. Same starting amount. Same market. Same 30 years. The only difference is a number most people never bother to look up. And fund fees are often just the first layer. Financial advisors commonly charge another 0.5% to a full percent annually on top of that. On a $1 million portfolio, a 1% advisory fee alone is $10,000 a year, before you even account for what that missing $10,000 could have compounded into over the next 20 years. To be fair, this particular tax has actually been shrinking. Average fees inside retirement accounts have fallen for more than 2 decades, as investors increasingly demand cheaper index funds over expensive, actively managed ones. That's genuinely good news, and proof this tax isn't fixed in stone. It moves when enough people start paying attention to it. But shrinking isn't the same as gone, and the investors still paying the highest fees today are disproportionately the ones who never learned to ask a fund what it costs, or assumed the number was too small to be worth the conversation. The fourth invisible tax is the hardest one to notice, because it isn't about money leaving your account. It's about money that never got the chance to grow in the first place. Economists call it opportunity cost, and it might be the most expensive tax on this entire list. Every dollar that sits idle, in a checking account earning almost nothing, in a someday fund with no actual plan, in cash under the belief that saving automatically equals safety, is a dollar that isn't compounding. Nothing dramatic happens to it. It isn't stolen, it isn't taxed on paper, it just sits there, doing nothing, while inflation erodes it from one side and missed growth erodes it from the other. Think of an idle dollar as an employee you're paying full wages to do nothing. You wouldn't tolerate that at a business. Most people tolerate it in their own bank account for years without ever noticing, because nothing about it feels like a loss in the moment. It only becomes visible decades later, as the gap between where you are and where you could have been. Put all four of these together, and a pattern emerges. Lifestyle inflation, currency inflation, investment fees, and opportunity cost all wear the same disguise. None of them arrive as a bill. None of them require a signature. Each one is small enough, in any given month, to ignore completely. And each one is large enough, compounded across a decade or three, to decide whether someone builds real wealth or just circulates money for their entire working life. That's what actually makes these attacks, rather than a series of unlucky mistakes. A mistake is something you can point to and correct. This is structural. It's built into how money, psychology, and time interact with each other, and it collects itself automatically from anyone who isn't paying attention, which, for most of history, has been almost everyone. None of this is inevitable, though. These taxes are called invisible for one simple reason: nobody ever showed most people where to look. Once you know where to look, each one becomes manageable, sometimes in a single afternoon. Start with lifestyle inflation. Treat every raise the way a good business treats new revenue. Decide in advance what percentage is allowed to upgrade your life, and put the rest to work immediately, before it has the chance to turn into just how things are now. Treat inflation as a permanent, guaranteed cost of holding cash, not a rare emergency you'll deal with someday. Any money that isn't earning at least as much as prices are rising is losing real value in slow motion, even while the number on the screen stays exactly the same. Check the expense ratio and advisory fee on every account you hold. It's public information, usually a single search away, and a difference of even 1 percentage point, compounded over 30 years, is the difference between tens of thousands of dollars staying yours or leaving for good. And give every idle dollar a job. Keep an emergency fund somewhere safe and genuinely accessible. Beyond that, cash without a purpose is an employee on payroll doing absolutely nothing, month after month, for decades. None of these fixes require a finance degree. They require 10 minutes, a willingness to look at a number you've been avoiding, and the decision to stop treating small percentages as harmless just because they're small. Small percentages are exactly how invisible taxes stay invisible. Here's the uncomfortable part to sit with. Most people will spend more time this year comparing gas station prices down the street than they'll spend checking the fee on their own retirement account. The tax that gets the least attention is consistently the one that costs the most money. You can't out-earn a system built to collect from you in 4 different directions before you've even noticed the money is gone. Lifestyle inflation. Currency inflation. Investment fees. Opportunity cost. For invisible taxes, no paperwork attached to any of them, running silently in the background of every single year you're alive. But you can see them now, clearly, probably for the first time. And seeing them is the part almost nobody actually does. The people who end up wealthy at the end of this story were rarely the ones who earned the most along the way. Overwhelmingly, they were the ones who simply stopped paying for taxes they never knew existed.